Hello and welcome to the ManageIQ Sprint 90 review. This was a regular 2-week sprint. Right. As usual, I will go over the overview of the sprint statistics. Carol will update us on the community. Dan will give an update on the UI. Tomas will give us an update on the providers. Tina on Automate. Gregg T on platform. Alberto on the REST API, and Chris B on documentation. Slide. Okay, so in the sprint, we had 253 pull requests merged across 94 repositories. Let's see, so 43 or 22% were in the classic UI. Same number in the integration tests, so that's good. That means that our testing, automated tests for ManageIQ are hopefully keeping pace. The ManageIQ core repo was third with 17.8%, and then the active work on the B2B took fourth place. All right, so this slide here, this graph gives us a view of what happens from sprint to sprint. In this sprint, we had 253 pull requests merged versus 297 last time, and 337 pull requests were created. And this is across 94 repos versus 92 repos before. So it seems to be good progress. Just like to investigate why we went down from 297 to 253. Seems like a 20% drop or something, 8% drop. So we get to understand that. And what else do we have there, John? We released Gaprindashvili 4 on July 16th. Great job, guys. That should have a bunch of fixes in it to help make Gaprindashvili more stable. Next slide. All right. So this is another view of the pull requests merged by type. So 63 of them, or 35%, were enhancements. Almost the same amount were bug fixes, and 10% were documentation. Next slide. And this is the health report. I look for major changes here, and I don't see too many. There's a bunch of greens, which is good, but not any significant numbers. And I see a few reds, but also insignificant in terms of numbers. So no big changes on the health of the repositories. Next slide. All right, and over to Carol on the community.
All right, thank you, Oleg. So this Monday, we have just released Gaprindashvili 4, and the announcement post is out, and please take a look. Thanks to everyone who worked to make this happen. And then next, quite exciting, aiming the next release after Hammer, the I release, and the voting closes this Friday, so please vote if you haven't already. Currently, we have 77 votes, and it's very close between Ukrainian chess grandmaster Ivan Shuk and Georgian chess grandmaster Yoseliani. I hope I'm pronouncing the names right. So, great names, so please vote for your favorites. Then we have a very it's a sing-along, so I think I might do future ManageIQ meetups and events, have a karaoke with Chen. Very, very lovely song. So again, if you haven't seen it already, check it out. A couple of things to the website. One is the API, the YAML file for the menu had to be updated to reflect the changes for the version 3 of the API. So thanks to those who reported the issue on GitHub SOS Talk forum, and so we had updated some formatting and also syntax highlighting. So it makes it easier for us when we write our blog posts to include code blocks, make them a lot easier and prettier. So now you don't have to pre-encode format tags, but rather you just use the markdown with the triple backticks. So it's a lot easier and a lot neater for including code blocks. So take a look to see the examples in the PR if you're interested. And that's all for community update. Next slide, please.
Here's Dan. I think Mawa's not muted. Sounds like we're getting some extra noise there. Anyway, for the UI side, 65 total. 65 total PRs, and just for Oleg, there was a holiday the first week, so we had a lot of people extend that. There was a holiday in Brno as well, 2 days, so a lot of people extended that either to a long weekend or the whole week. So that's why our count is down. We're usually around 80 to 90 or more. A lot of bug fixes, some enhancements coming in for this current release, and so a little bit of refactoring. We're trying to knock that down a little bit and be smart about it. As far as bugs, another one of these where the new switches that we were using can't handle the nil, so it's got to be true or false. So that was fixed in both the ops UI and the SUI. EC2 doesn't need a snapshot field, so that was removed, minor fix. On the request screen, for the dates and times for the request, we were showing the current date and time instead of the actual date and time of the request. Then this next one was actually a browser-specific, browser and OS specific. It was I think Firefox on Mac, where the radio buttons weren't taking effect, so they had to add some extra JavaScript checks in there. In the container area, a couple of the buttons weren't working basically for the lists of items that were below another item. So when you're looking at the main list of items, they would work, but when you were looking at, for example, images under a container, then it wouldn't work. We've seen that in other places, but we took care of that all across the container area. This is weird because the dialogues are shared by SUI and OpsUI, but for some reason the SUI, there was a case where the refresh wasn't working for the dialog fields. And the SUI also got compatibility with the OpsUI, where the requests for retirement were made, or the retirements were made into requests instead of doing them synchronous. So, next slide. On the enhancement side, the upper limit for the daily chargeback reports was bumped to 5 weeks. That allows people to do a whole month's worth of daily reporting, whereas before they were limited to 4 weeks, which was 28 days, so they couldn't get the whole month. Set the status. Oh, this is in the physical servers, physical switches area. There's some status indication now in the topology view. The platform team put the OpenID Connect authentication support in. I think Gregg will talk about that later. And in V2V, the inactive migration plans, you can now schedule them. Next slide. So a gratuitous topology screen. I like that, it's pretty cool. But if you look on the right and in the middle there, you can see a bunch of servers and there's a red one there. So basically they put in the status with the surrounding servers. Pretty cool, you can identify servers. I'm sure if you drilled in and turn things on and off, they'll be a little more clear than this picture.
Cool. Dan, we're gonna have the rack screen too to make it look like a data center, or no?
I'm not sure. We'll have to talk to our friends. The big L in the middle. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the UI for the OpenID Connect. You see if you turn it on, then when you log in, you'll be able to get the enterprise system login as well as the normal. And next slide. So for V2V scheduling, I'm going to let Alan do a quick demo. I have a GIF there just in case for the people that look at these slides later. Take it away, Alan.
Cool. Thank you, Dan. So for those of you who are on the stand-up, let's see, I need to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen. For those of you who are on our daily stand-up, you know I've been talking about this scheduling thing for like the past 2 weeks. What the heck is that? So we're going to head into V2V. It's under Compute Migration for those of you who are unaware. All right, cool. So this is V2V. You create an infrastructure mapping, and then you create a migration plan. We have 2 migration plans here that are not started yet. In progress ones show up under here. Completed ones, there's been a lot of failure on my part, show up there, and then you can archive completed plans. Nothing I run will pass because I'm running this locally, so it's all kind of like for giggles. But what did I do? So now we have this schedule button. Click the schedule button, you pick a date and a time. You can't go in the past because, well, that would be insane. But you can go in the future, which is super cool. And let's do one for giggles right now. So test 4 with the description womp womp will disappear from us shortly. You can also unschedule the plans. And you can also just, still migrate them instantly. So that's the one that we just kicked off. You can also sort, which I guess I probably should have demonstrated prior to removing all of the plans, but you can sort by number of VMs and schedule time. So there we go. It's gone. It's in progress. This will fail, but that's okay. This is a real machine. It would really work. And then it would show up over here. So that's all that I have to show for scheduling migration plans. I'm going to unshare my screen and off to Dan again, or the next presenter.
Alan, I think it goes off to providers team.
And that would be me. Hello, everyone. I'm going to cover the update for the providers team. And then I'm going to hand over to Adam for on-premise providers update. Next slide, please. Let's start with some statistics as usual. So you can see that this sprint was in favor of on-premise providers. VMware is winning this time with 6 PRs merged, and a virtual silver medal goes to or is being shared between OpenStack, Kubernetes, and Azure. Next slide, please. There's been one task that stands out this sprint, and that's Martin Schlemmer's work or progress on the inventory collection builder. PRs merged this sprint, spans across multiple providers, and the majority of the code is already in place. As a result of this work, we're going to have a new interface available, which would allow us to define and create inventory from Persister. Next slide, please. From the cloud provider's perspective, we have here an update on Azure, where Dan did a great job on the listed enhancement and fixes. First one is that the provider's been upgraded to use new Azure armrest, which allow us to specifically select in config the API revision we want to use. Also, the flavor naming conventions have been adjusted, so we maintain consistencies for the flavors name with the cloud, while the EMS refresh is consistent internally. This used to cause troubles in different provisioning approaches. Also, instead of MIQ credentials error, we now write standard error when connection to the cloud is not behaving well, so we can get better handling from the worker side and can eventually reconnect. And the last one, we now maintain proper relations that by setting parents for VMs when possible. Next slide, please. And last but not least, from the public cloud providers is Nuage. We've been able to enhance network port inventory, so we now support additional VM port types like bridge port, VM port, or host port. And that's about it. Over to Adam for on-premise providers.
Thanks, Tom. So this sprint, the OpenStack team upgraded to a new version of Fog OpenStack. This fixed an error trying to access the OpenStack console from ManageIQ. They also fixed an issue with visibility of flavors where some flavors were not showing up. On the VMware side, we changed it to be able to turn on streaming refresh on or off without having to restart your refresh worker. Before, you would have to actually restart EVM server to pick up the streaming refresh changes. Now you can turn it on and off dynamically. We also added the ability to debug logging of property updates, which makes it easier to see what's changing in your environment. Next slide. On the Lenovo side, they finished up a few sprints worth of work to parse the connections between physical servers and switches, which is what was needed to show that cool graph that Dan showed in the previous slide. So the earlier parts are pretty simple. The parser side was the really difficult bit here. So great job to the Lenovo team. On the container side, they cleaned up the inventory collection definitions, which was made possible by Martin S.'s work. Kubernetes was pretty early in Graph Refresh, and they had a lot of really old definitions of inventory collections that we've since progressed past, and so we cleaned up a lot of old code there. They also fixed an issue with archiving of container images, which had been a known issue for a long time, but hadn't been able to be fixed until Martin S. did the inventory collection refactoring, so that's great. And next slide.
Thanks, Adam. For Automate, we had 25 PRs merge this sprint. For V2V, Lucy enhanced the migration plan configuration to allow users to set a pre- and post-migration playbook method. Fabian has a pending PR, which adds the Automate code to execute the pre- and post playbooks. Bill Wheat introduced a feature to cancel MIQ requests and MIQ request tasks. The first supported types are the V2V transformation plan, MIQ request, and MIQ request tasks, although the initial implementation is a temporary solution. For dialogues, Eric fixed a self-service dialogue issue where a refresh of a dynamic field did not call into Automate under certain circumstances. And Drew Yu resolved a performance issue where the dialogues were being run an extra time on submit. Next slide, please. For retirement, Drew Yu changed the self-service UI to use the new retirement request API call instead of the old retire now call, as Dan mentioned. And she fixed a service bundle retirement issue where service children weren't properly retired. Patrick made a change to remove all generic objects from a service before the service is destroyed. And Gregg removed more host provisioning references from the ManageIQ and Classic UI repos. And finally, Billy Fitz added deprecated log messages to old email methods. Next slide, and over to Gregg.
Okay, on the platform side, we had 16 PRs merged. So a couple enhancements here. One Dan already mentioned, in case you missed it. We extended the limit for chargeback for 5 weeks. That was done on the platform side, so that's why I put it on the slide. And OpenID Connect also was mentioned by Dan. Joe V did the back-end work. This is culmination of work over a long period of time that he was able to work on and off with Alberto as well. So that's pretty much done. It's completed in the codified version, and it's just about done on the appliance side. Some bug fixes. LJ and Nick as well fixed the 502 errors that people have been reporting. So this is an issue, seems like it's in the Rails side where there's a deadlock loading classes in the API. And what was happening is it would actually lock up the API worker under certain circumstances. So this was really difficult to find. Nick created the script to recreate it. Joe was able to fix it, and hopefully we won't see those again. Also, a change was made to the maintenance that we do now that's internal. We go directly to the database. We don't do this through a cron job anymore, but we change it to do vacuum analyze instead of a full vacuum to prevent locking. So some customers with big tables reported not deadlocks, but locking where the servers weren't able to continue working. And Brandon made a change to scope UI and API searches to recently active servers. The issue that this addresses is that when a server goes down or roles get changed, then like for central admin, when we get the host name of the server that's running the API role, it may not be up and running at that time. Next slide, please. And there's a screenshot that looks very similar to what Dan showed, in case you missed it. Here it is, and it's highlighted in red. So that's the OpenID Connect there. And that's it for platform. I'll turn it over to Alberto for the REST API.
Thanks, Greg. So on the API side, we had a couple of bug fixes come in, but also for enhancements, Brandon added the ability to delete service templates schedules, and this is for the V2V effort, because previously we added the ability to create a template schedule, but we needed the ability to delete them. So we have here support for single and bulk schedule deletes, as well, via the delete action, as well as deleting via the HTTP verb delete. So showing here an example where posting to the API service templates, the individual resource schedule. So this is deleting the individual schedule via post or delete, and doing the bulk equivalent to the schedule sub-collection of that service templates. And that's it for the API. Next slide.
Hi, for documentation in this sprint, we have 8 PRs merged, all of which were enhancements. Some of those included an order service template example. We've added provider inventory, embedded Ansible server role requirements. We've updated the procedure on adding an EC2 provider with custom endpoints in the URL field. And we've added new currencies to the chargeback rates. Next slide, please.
All right, and that concludes the Sprint 90 review. We will be back in 2 weeks for Sprint 91 review. Thank you, everyone, for all the work on ManageIQ. Thanks.